Right, here we go. All cameras seem to be recording, so we'll see what happens. And of course we're starting off on the famous Vyres Yellow Road, but that's not the point of this video. What this video is about, it's something I've been thinking about for a long while now. How much bikes and riding have changed over the years. Now, motorcycling is more popular today, I think, than it's ever been. And there's a lot of riders who've only been riding perhaps 5, 10, 20 years. Being an old git, I've been riding nearly 60 years. So I sort of know my way around the Peak District. But the thing is, looking back, how things have changed. Back until the early 60s, you could literally buy any size of motorbike, stick an L plate on it, and away you went. No training, nothing like that. The only restriction was you couldn't carry a passenger if you were a learner, but you could if you fitted a sidecar. However, by the time I was old enough to ride, the new law came in restricting learners to 250cc. But back then, my first bike was a Triumph Tiger Cub, because when I started it was mainly Triumph, BSA, aerial arrows, things like that, and the odd Norton. Then, shortly after I started riding, the first Japanese bikes started to arrive, which were something different. Now, when the first Jap bikes came, they were fitted with, I think they were Bridgestone tyres at a time, but they were the early Japanese tyres. And let's put it like this, it was like they weren't rubber, it felt like plastic. They'd got virtually no grip at all, and a white line could send you into a tank slapper. And the early Jap bikes, at the time, of course, all the British riders referred to them as Jap crap. Little were we to know how things would change over the years. But they did. And one of the first major things that changed was that once Yamaha and Honda started to get established, along came this wonderful thing called an electric start. Before that, it was a case of kicking it up, and if it was a 4-stroke, it was quite likely it was going to kick you back and wallop your shins. So that was the first big improvement. From then on, things started to change dramatically. More and more Japanese bikes really started to get a hold on things. And the British, who believed for years that they made the finest motorcycles in the world, suddenly found themselves being left behind. Because, in all honesty, before long the Japanese bikes were actually better. Tyres were another big thing that changed, because as we went along, to start with, you had Avon Speedmasters, and the rear tyre was totally square profile, which didn't inspire great angles of lean. Then, later on in the 60s, Dunlop came along with a triangular tyre, which became known as the TT100. Now, TT100 did give good grip in corners, but when they were new, the shape of it was literally a triangle, an upside down triangle with a flat bottom. And when you came off that flat bottom, it was like suddenly the bike dived over to the left or right as it came off the edge of that thing and went onto the sidewall. once you were on the sidewall it was fine, but until you were used to it, it was a bit of a shock when you rolled off that edge onto the sidewall. So again, things were changing. And looking back over the years, I think I've rode most kinds of things. I think the only one I haven't rode is a rotary, but I've rode singles, twins, 3 cylinders, 4 cylinders, 2 strokes, 4 strokes, V-twins, V4s, you name it. And coming back to the thing about learning to ride, back then there was no learning to ride. Basically you got a bike and taught yourself how to try and stay on it. And being teenagers, a lot of people got injured because they saw racing on the TV occasionally, or sometimes went to Mallory Park or Cadwell or Brands and thought, I want to do that. So they started throwing the bikes around corners, and with no sense of road positioning or anything, they thought it was all about clipping the apex like the racers do, and they finished up getting themselves hurt. So, as I say, there was no training at all. Then into the 70s, more developments from Japan had come along, and we got things like monoshock, which was a revolution, and disc brakes. I'm not sure how true it is, but I understand that the Japanese got the idea for monoshock. Some of the Honda mechanics were in London in the Hyde Park underground car park, and they actually saw a Vincent Lightning which had got sloping suspension, and they thought, idea. And from that, it wasn't too long before monoshock came along, and I must say, when it first arrived, everybody was thinking, that looks weird, it looks like something missing off the bike. But before too long, we found out it really worked rather well. And disc brakes were another big surprise. When the first disc came out, they were solid discs. I know all the discs these days have got holes drilled in them, and the reason for that is that the first discs, which were just solid metal discs, they worked fine in the dry, but once they got wet, you put the brakes on and virtually nothing happened. So it was brown trouser time. And it wasn't too long before they came up with the idea of drilling holes in the disc, and then later on sintered pads came along, of course. Coming back to training, in the early 70s, the only training available, and I was part of it at one time, it was the RAC ACU training scheme, which was free, and it was run by experienced motorcyclists who just volunteered to teach young people a bit more how to ride and how to control a bike and how to use the gears properly, etc., and so forth. No CBTs or anything like that then. No Mod 1s, Mod 2s, you know. You had to learn, and you learnt in that era from experience, which is always the greatest teacher. So that's what happened there. And over the years things have developed. I mean, you know, living in the Peak District way back even into the 50s, Matlock Bath was a regular haunt for bikers, and there'd be clubs like the local club which was based in Draycote with the 52 Club, which I think they nicked that name because of the 59 at the Ace Cafe in London. But you know, there'd be a gang of perhaps 7 or 8 mates and that who'd all got bikes, and you'd all go out and race each other everywhere you went, and then wonder why some of you didn't come out the other side. So training does have its value, and I remember a few years ago a guy came out with a whole bunch of us, there were 36 bikes on a ride, and he was on the 750 Kawasaki, which he said he bought it because of the handling. So I said, well, why don't you come out with us one night? And we did a good route through the peaks, around some serious twisties and that. And at every corner, I followed him for a while, at every corner he was hard on the brakes. And the way we operated then, we'd have a tail end Charlie who knew where we were going and a leader. And when we got to a junction, we'd stop and regroup, let everybody get back together so nobody got lost. Eventually we stopped at the junction at Owler Bar, which comes just after a really nice set of twisties, and he pulled up to the side of me, lifted his visor up, his face was bright red, pouring with sweat, and not to mince words, he said, "Can these bastards go any faster?" So I told him, yeah. His mistake was that he'd been riding just over a year, and he was in his 40s at the time, but he was riding with a bunch of people who'd been riding 40 or more years, some of which were ex-club racers, so they know how to go quick and be safe. But I know when we got back to work, he didn't stop talking about it for a week. He said we were a bunch of maniacs, but again, experience is the greatest teacher. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. And you do have some laughs over the years. But nowadays, we've got so many advanced features. I mean, on this bike, my V-Strom, you know, I've got a digital speedo, tells me what gear I'm in, what the air temperature is, what I'm doing to the gallon, everything else. We've got heated grips in winter, I've got Gerbin heated gloves, things like that. The clothing we've got is much, much better. Back in the 60s and that, a pair of denim jeans and a Belstaff or Barber jacket, a white silk scarf because it was open face helmets, and that was about it. And if you were lucky, you managed to get hold of some ex-dispatch rider boots and bought some sea boot stockings from the socks from the army stores and folded them over the top of your boots, and away you went. But as regards padding and protection, it was non-existent. You know, so it's not just the bikes that's come on a lot, it's also the equipment we use today, the gear we've got today. It's expensive. We don't go out planning to get hurt, but there's always a possibility. You know, as bikers we accept that we are more vulnerable than car drivers. Having said that, I very often feel safer at high speed on a bike than I do in a car. You know, I've pulled people out of cars who've been in a smash, and it can make a mess. It really can. So, whoops, nice little twister here, manhole. Avoid that. But a lovely day to be out today. And as I say, that's my look back at the years of riding and how things have changed. Favourite bikes over the years? Hard to say. I had a 650 PSA Super Rocket, which was a great bike, and that was my transport when I was courting my wife, and she loved it. And I'd also got Yamaha RD with single seat, alloy tank, all the rest of it. That was a great bike. Later on I moved on to a VFR, which I had for about 8 years, and that was a really nice bike to ride. But as we moved into the 90s, I thought, I fancy a change, I fancy something a bit more upright. And at that time, the new, what were called at the time, budget bikes started to come along, first with the Suzuki Bandit, swiftly followed by the Yamaha Phaser and the Honda Hornet. Personally, I think the Hornet and the Phaser were better than the Bandit, although there's still a lot of Bandits about. The Hornet had a terrible reputation for being extremely thirsty regarding petrol, and it was a standing joke that the Phaser Owners Club, affectionately known as FOCU, which stood for Phaser Owners Club Unofficial, would meet up with the Hornets Nest riders, and it was a standing joke that did the Hornets riders all have a map showing where all the petrol stations was. So, of course, banter's always been a part of biking. Another side of things is I've got friends who car drivers and they've never ridden a bike. They have no understanding about riding a bike. And I mean, I drive a car as well, but personally I think being a biker is a totally different thing. It's just you, the bike and the road. You have to be more aware of what's going on. You know, you haven't got sort of sat-navs, and well, you have got sat-navs, but you know, people in the cars playing with the phones and all this sort of thing. We've all seen it, and they don't realise, they think they're in a metal cage and they can't get hurt, but they can, as we all know. Whereas bikers, we're more aware that we can get hurt and hopefully take appropriate action. I sort of feel sorry for car drivers. I don't think many car drivers have much idea about what you might call the brotherhood. I hate that sort of word. It sounds American Harley type of thing, doesn't it? But there is a fellowship among bikers. You've only got to look at the number of people who will nod to you when you're out on the bike. Complete strangers will nod, and if you stop and think you're in trouble, there will usually be somebody who's more than willing to help. And I mean, these days biker calves are the big thing, and you get, wherever you go, you can go out on your own, stop at a biker calf, and you'll finish up in deep conversation with somebody, making friends and having a laugh together. Which is something that I don't think happens half as much with the car driving brigade. And now we're going down through Fenny Bentley. This is the A515, which leads us back to Newhaven, and eventually ends up at Buxton, but I'm not going there today. I'm just out to enjoy the ride because it's such a nice day. Let's be honest, it's a lovely day, great day for riding. And just wanted to put this video together and see if it's of interest to anybody, because you know, I say I'm an old git. I've been riding a long time. I've seen so many changes over the years. It's not true, you know, so hopefully you might gain a bit of something from this, or if not, I hope you find it entertaining. And then it's going to be down to all the editing when I get home, which I'm pretty new to editing video, so it might take me a while. Hold on, and this of course is my current bike, which is 2014 650 V-Strom, and I absolutely love it. And a year ago, my son Chris, who's got a Phaser like I had my Phaser 21 years, and I got a good price when I sold it. And my son Chris came up from Bristol last year, and I sent him out on the V-Strom. I said, look, you need to do some miles on this and see what you think. Suffice to say, he's now got a 650 V-Strom. He loves it to bits. So big shout out to Suzuki. You made a cracking bike, but you know, it's been 20 years in development, so it should be pretty good by now. concentrating on the road a bit round here. There's a few dodgy twisties here. And a few potholes. Here we go. We're now approaching Newhaven. So I think what I'm going to do there, I don't know, I might stop there and finish the video, or should I go all the way down via G? I don't know. I'll see. But, yeah, I think I'll probably pull in at Newhaven and stop recording there, because otherwise videos. One thing I've learned about making vlogs for bikes is try and keep it down to around about 15-20 minutes or so. If it gets to over an hour, people get very bored with it. And if you do like the video when it's finished, please give me a like. I need it. I don't know. About all this traffic in front of me, but it's not far from Newhaven now. Here we are, Newhaven. So I'm going to turn off here, and I think when I get a lay-by here, I'll finish the video. So again, if you've watched this, thanks very much for watching. Hope you find it interesting and entertaining. So again, thank you.